Hello and welcome back. I'm Jared Kwan, aka Resitor164, and today I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit about leadership and parenting. So I'm going to put my leadership and parenting hat on to talk about that. First, I want to talk about a little bit about my experience as a parent. When my firstborn son was born, his esophagus was not attached to his stomach when he was born, right? Right after he was born, they were suctioning him out, and they discovered rather quickly that they couldn't. And after a quick X-ray, they discovered that it wasn't attached. Actually, the tube from his stomach had attached to his lung, and while he was developing, the fluid would pass down his esophagus through his lung into his body, which was okay when he was an infant, but now that he was born, that wasn't going to work out. So he had to go into surgery, emergency surgery, within 24 hours. And my wife had pulled her sciatic nerve, so I had to travel by life flight to another hospital with my son to have the procedure performed. And then I had to come back to the hospital where she was after he was secured to make sure she was okay. So that's my firstborn son. My second-born son, like boys most often do, was very competitive. In that when he was born, we didn't know that there was anything wrong with him. We even had extra ultrasounds after our first son. And he was born, and he seemed healthy, and I even made 2 pediatricians sign off on him. 2. I was paranoid. And I had a right to be, as it turns out. We took him home, and 24 hours after he was home, he started to get dehydrated and wouldn't eat. And my wife took him to the pediatrician. She was very concerned. And as soon as she got there and the pediatrician saw him, she called the ambulance right away. Took him right to the hospital. As it turns out, and we found out later that day, that he only had 2 chambers in his heart. And that's what was wrong. So we were going to have to deal with the decisions around that, whether it was to move or do nothing or put him through some very risky surgeries that they told us he only had a 10% chance of survival. His condition's so rare that there is no name for it. Later on in life, he would go on to become a Make-A-Wish kid. Now, both those boys, 16 and 14 right now, are doing well, which is great. I also had 3 wonderful daughters after that were all born healthy and happy. So, along with their medical issues with my sons, my first 2, both have a little bit of autism. My second more severe. And that caused severe problems with the school districts. So my first 2 boys are homeschooled after countless meetings with school districts and counselors and teachers. I can't tell you how many we had. Tons. And my daughters are doing well in traditional school. They're doing just fine, and they're very happy there. We have no intention of homeschooling them. Now, that's a little bit on my parenting experience. Let me tell you a little bit about my leadership experience. I've had the opportunity to lead many things over the years. Most currently, as I mentioned before, I'm the president of the League of Utah Writers. They've been around for 80 years, so it's a huge responsibility to take on the leadership of that organization and be responsible for it moving forward and ensuring that it not only continues, but it thrives moving forward. Right now, there are roughly about 800 members in the League of Utah Writers, and it's growing rapidly. I was chair of the West Jordan Arts Council. During that time when I was living in West Jordan, it was an honor and privilege to be on the Arts Council. It had been around for some time, and some people on the board had served for 15 plus years. So it was a real privilege and a different set of experiences leading that particular group. On top of that, also, I'm the executive director of Big World Network, which is the nonprofit publishing house. Now, as you could have guessed, publishing houses typically are not nonprofit. We decided we really wanted to be different and break the mold and provide a resource for a particular group of people. And that's people that are underserved or minorities in the community and giving them the resources to get published. There's a lot of predatory publishers out there that will publish your work if you pay them money, or just sign over all the rights to your book and you hardly get anything. Both of those things are not good. As a matter of fact, both those things can lead to are typically signs of very troubled and not typical, not good publishers. So Big World wanted to be one that could sign a contract with an author, not because we thought that their book was going to be a bestseller, because really that's what all the other publishers are looking for. If they don't think your book is going to sell and become big, then they won't sign you, regardless of how good or how great it is. Because at the end of the day, their whole company is built around your book. A nonprofit publishing house has the ability to tap into resources that traditional publishers don't. There's some grants from state and federal governments, as well as charitable donations and pieces like that will allow Big World to be very friendly with the authors and be that resource to the community that people desperately need. Now, there's a quote that I love when talking about leadership and parenting, right? Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. And I say this, first of all, from personal experience, as well as the experience of many others that I work with that have had these extraordinary challenges in their life, these hardships that just seemed unbearable or impossible or just catastrophic in their life. And they've turned out to be some of the most extraordinary people I know. They have the tenacity to challenge life and get out there and really work hard for a cause that they love. So let's delve right into the parenting and leadership portion. First of all, as a leader and a parent, and these are tied together. A lot of these pieces are the same. Being a leader is like being a parent. It's really a lot of the principles translate back and forth between the two. There's a quote by Pele, the great soccer player that I love. He said, "It's not important to give advice. It's important to give example." It's easy for even in my position right now for me to just give you advice. But it's more important that I'm able to be in a situation where if you look me up, if you come talk to me, if you come to one of my conferences or see the stuff that I've been able to do, that you can see the example there that you could use to help you as both either a parent or a leader. It's important to me for my children as well. If you're an example to your parent, a lot of PSAs out there will mention things about if your kids see you smoking, if your kids see you swearing, the things that you do as a parent are going to translate into your kids. They see it, they think it's okay, regardless of what you tell them. You can say smoking's bad for you, but if they see you smoking, internally they're like, smoking might be bad for you, but my parent does it, so it's probably not as bad as they're saying. The key there is, and the important thing to take away from that particular piece is that if you pay attention to what you're doing, if you have an idea of what you would like to see your kid, how you would like to see them grow up, what kind of person you would like to see them be, really you need to start looking for those changes in yourself so you can be the example that your kid needs to have that resource to grow up with and to be like. One common piece of advice that everybody likes to point out to is have an open line of communication, both with your children or your employees. Those it might seem like obvious advice, But really, it's not as easy as it sounds. You get busy as a leader, you get busy as a parent. There's things that you want to take on or be responsible for, and or take care of yourself, and you neglect the communication piece. It's important to understand that you need to set aside time, even if it means scheduling it, even if it means scheduling it on your cell phone, so that it reminds you, hey, take a few minutes, go talk with your kids, or take a few minutes, go talk with some of your employees, and get to know them a little bit better. Make sure that you become an ally to these people, to your kids, so that if they end up in a tough situation, that they feel comfortable talking to you about it, so that you can give them some real advice or find out what kind of situation they're getting themselves into and help them out of it. Now, of course, I have a lot more both parenting and leadership advice, but I want to keep it short. I want to keep it easy to watch and real quick. So I appreciate your time. I hope that you get a little bit out of this. And don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it, your time that you're spending with me. Thank you. Bye.